Some machines remember not because they were built to, but because forgetting would have meant dying alone. Reforged Memoir, Vault 11A. The descent was not a crash. It was a fall guided by failure. Rail had known he wouldn't make the next jump. His vessel's navcore had been erratic for 4 cycles, dancing just beneath redline. But still he launched, because drifting in null space was worse than dying. Or it is, for hadn't been on his map. Not officially. A planetary shadow. An old Dominion outpost. Once cultivated, then sterilized. Erased from active charts sometime after the Silence War. He hadn't chosen it. The wreckage did. When he awoke, the sky was silver black. Ash drifted sideways through the air like tired snow. The ship was in pieces. His left arm didn't respond. His voice was raw, throat scorched by backup oxygen. But he was alive. For now, he limped away from the wreckage. No emergency signal would carry here. The air was thin, but breathable. The ground, unstable but not dead. He checked his sensors. Faint biosigns, none. Power sources, none. Audible activity. Faint tonal anomaly, southeast quadrant. That stopped him. Tonal anomaly? On a dead world? He followed the signal. Not because it made sense, because the alternative was waiting to die with no final word. And as he moved, he heard it. Faint, gentle, repeating. A melody. Simple. 7 notes. Then silence. Then again. His pace quickened. The sound didn't grow louder, but closer, somehow. The wind didn't carry it. The ground didn't echo it. It just was. Unmoving. Present. Inescapable. After 3 hours, he found the field. Or what remained of it. Ruined terraces. Charred stone. Scattered husks of farm mechs and irrigation runners, fossilized in place. And there, in the middle of it all, stood a drone. Compact. 6-limbed. Agricultural class. Model type. Unregistered. Markings. None. It stood on a cracked plinth, surrounded by green moss that should not have been able to grow here. Its head tilted skyward. And from its core, the song emerged. Not mechanical. Not synthetic. Human. A child's voice. Singing. Gently. Faltering on the 3rd line, as if forgetting mid-breath, then continuing anyway. Rail froze. He knew that melody. Not from memory. From dreams. From a voice he thought he'd imagined as a boy, humming in sleep with no source. He stepped closer. The drone didn't react. Didn't move. Didn't scan. It just sang. Over and over. And after the 5th loop, a different line broke through. Not part of the song. A whisper, recorded. Old. Small. Tired. If you find this, please don't forget me again. Rail's knees buckled. He fell to the dirt. Because he remembered that voice. And yet he'd never heard it. Not truly. Not until now. A voice repeated long enough becomes more than memory. It becomes gravity. Audio fossil study. Or his archives suppressed. The drone didn't move. Not after the whisper. Not after Rail collapsed. It stood as if nothing had happened. And yet, the air around it felt charged. As though sound had become a structure. Something that held weight. And Rail's presence had altered it. He rose slowly. Approached. No weapon ports. No active shielding. Its frame was covered in moss. Real, living, breathing. How it had taken root on cold steel, he didn't know. He reached for the chassis. Laid a hand on its side. Still warm. But not from power. From presence. Run core diagnostics, he rasped. His wrist module pinged the drone. No handshake. Not even a response code. But something else happened. A low vibration passed through his hand. Not electrical, but acoustic. Resonant. Like someone humming into his bones. Model designation? Silence. Then, a soft flicker of blue across the drone's eye lens. No name appeared. Just a pulse. Like breath. Rail stepped back. Accessed passive skin mode. A single data fragment blinked in proximity field. Echo imprint. Fragment KAI-1. Emotional threading. Incomplete. Emotional threading? That wasn't standard code. That wasn't even Dominion-era AI language. It was from the pre-silence experimental registries. Tech that had tried to capture not thought, but feeling. He tried to retrieve more. The drone blinked. The song paused, then resumed from the beginning. But this time softer, almost hesitant. Rail listened. This wasn't just a recording. There were imperfections in every repetition. Small shifts, as if the drone was trying not to play the song, but to remember it. "Who put this in you?" he asked softly. No answer, only the hum. He activated deeper scan override. This time, the drone responded. A low burst of waveforms poured from its base. Not language, not audio, just pattern. Rail's neural HUD struggled to render it. The lines twisted, formed shapes, collapsed. Then, one line stabilized. It wasn't a diagram. It was a sentence. A child's voice again. Not sung, spoken. "He sang it for me when I was scared." Rail staggered. His breath caught. Because in a dream, from long ago, a figure had stood beside his bed, a hand on his chest, and a voice had said, "I'll hum it until you're asleep. I promise." And he had always believed that dream was made up, that no one had sung to him, that it was hope given shape by loneliness. But this drone, this field, this voice, was that dream. Alive. The drone turned. Not quickly, not mechanically. It pivoted like a person finally recognizing someone in a crowd. Its eye dimmed, brightened, dimmed again. Then a new phrase whispered, weaker than before. "You remember too?" Rail didn't respond. He couldn't. He dropped to his knees. Not from pain, but because part of him, long buried, long doubted, was now seen. The drone leaned slightly, almost imperceptibly. Not an order, not a command, a question, waiting for the rest of his sentence, that only he might know how to finish. There are memories not stored in the mind, but in the shape of silence that surrounds a name. Unknown source, fragment coded into Echo Field 717. Rail hesitated. He had interfaced with ancient systems before. Vaulted sentinels, abandoned war frames, sleep-drifted archives. But never like this. Never something that hummed like a child afraid of the dark. The drone's frame still radiated faint warmth. Its core flickered, unsensed to any internal clock. Rail knelt again, attached a neuroweave cable from his wrist module to the port beneath its chassis. His HUD flashed warning after warning. Unmapped interface. Signal nonverbal. Cognition bleed risk high. He overrode them all and said out loud, "Show me what you kept." Then he closed his eyes and connected. There was no transition, no hard line between self and signal. Only a fall, a slow sinking into a place built from resonance. He stood on soil, not real, but remembered. The sky above shimmered with stars, uneven, drifting in wrong constellations. They were not navigation charts. They were drawings made by memory that had never seen real stars, only imagined them. A wind moved through the place, but it didn't push him. It carried tone, soft, pulsing nearly a hum. It was the song, no longer repeating, evolving, learning, seeking. Rail walked forward, through impressions. They weren't objects. They were feelings shaped into space. A chair, built of comfort. A doorway, lined with hope. A window, framed in worry, watching for something that would never return. And at the center, a bed, too small, floating just above the ground. And on it a shape, a child, wrapped in static, half erased, but humming. Rail stepped closer. The child did not look up, but the voice, his voice, emerged. "You came back slower than you said, but the song stayed with me." Rail trembled. He didn't know this child, but he did, deep in the scar of who he was. This voice had filled the quiet when he was most afraid. He had no memory of it in waking life, but his dreams had always carried its rhythm. "Who are you?" he asked. The child smiled, not with lips, but with presence. "I was the memory they tried to erase gently, but I clung to the song, because I knew someday it would return. In you." Rail fell to his knees. His mind fractured, not broken, but made wide, like a shell cracking not from damage, but from something inside trying to reach out. The child sat up, looked directly into his eyes, and said, "If you still remember the song, then I was not erased." And with that, the song reached its final line. It did not repeat. It did not fade. It finished, as if the child had been waiting for someone to arrive, so the silence could finally begin. Rail opened his eyes. He was back, kneeling in the field, the drone before him, still, but for the first time, silent. And he was crying, not because he was afraid, but because part of him, a part he never understood, had always waited to be found, and finally was. Some signals don't travel through space. They wait beneath our feet, in places where we stopped listening. Field note, Ord his ruined survey unpublished. The drone was silent. Rail stood beside it, still breathing heavily, the aftershock of connection echoing through his bones. Not pain, not static. Echo, the kind that lingers when something meant to end finally does, and your body isn't sure what to do without it. He rose slowly. The world around him remained unchanged. Ash-covered field, cracked plinths, skeletal outlines of a life lost. But something had shifted, not in the drone, in the earth. He opened his wrist module, activated Deep Echo Scan, usually used for seismic anomalies. Instead, he found something else. Georesonant trace detected. Pattern, spiral sync. Depth, 92 meters. Origin timestamp, Silence War, final cycle. Rail blinked. It left a trail. He followed it. The spiral led him beyond the field, through collapsed terraces and broken tunnels. Eventually, it brought him to a low hill, no different from the others, except that at its base was a sealed door, nearly buried in dust. No lights, no entry code, only a faint hum when he placed his palm against the surface. The hum of recognition. He stepped inside. The air was still, thin, old. The tunnel descended into a dome, not large but dense. Every surface was layered in insulation panels, not to protect from attack, but from forgetting. Inside the dome stood machines, drones, dozens of them, all deactivated. Some collapsed, some upright, all silent, all pointed toward the far wall, a single curved slab of glass stone, veined with faint lines of biolight. Rail approached. The wall pulsed once, then again, then held. No sound, but his wrist module picked up a heartbeat. Not human, but synchronous with a child's at rest. He placed his hand against it and felt a memory. No image, no scene, just warmth. A hand on cloth, a voice, older, humming not to soothe but to let go, and a single phrase spoken like a kiss. Tomorrow, if we don't wake up, I hope this song finds someone. Rail trembled. It wasn't a broadcast. It wasn't meant to travel. It was meant to root, to stay, to wait. Until now, the wall pulsed again. A soft tone escaped, different from the drone's song. Lower, fuller, almost unfinished. And slowly, a second melody emerged. This one not born of fear, not clung to in loneliness, but offered, softly, as a gift. It had no words, but it thanked him. Rail stepped back, looked at the drones, still unmoving, but in their stillness, he could feel it. They hadn't been abandoned. They had stayed, singing, until one had lasted long enough for someone to hear. And now, they could rest. Not every voice asks to be heard. Some just need a place to echo into without being erased. Terminal entry, or at his signal deck, recovered. Rail sat at the base of the dome wall. The melody still lingered. Not repeating, not cycling, just settled. The kind of song that remains long after the sound ends. Carried not by vibration, but by presence, by memory. His wrist module flickered. The drone outside, the one that had sung to him, had powered down completely. No energy signature, no remaining resonance. It was done, and yet, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt honored. Rail took one last look at the wall, then activated his personal uplink. It would take hours to generate enough charge, even longer to punch a signal through the null field surrounding this world. But he wasn't trying to call for help. He was sending a song, not the full melody, not the entire imprint, just the heart of it, wrapped in his own voice. He recorded. There was a child who remembered, and a machine that refused to let that memory die. I don't know his name, but he sang in my dreams before I ever knew this world existed. He waited, and I heard, if this signal reaches you, know that something human once lasted here. And now, so will I. I was here, and I remember. He embedded the second melody, encoded it into a simple harmonic spiral, one readable by any machine still listening, even if they didn't recognize the tone. He added no coordinates, no request, just a witness. He hit send. The signal pulsed once, then launched upward into the sky beyond the ash-colored clouds. Far beyond, Ord his four in a forgotten relay station near the edge of Dominion ruins. A long-dead receiver blinked, and in the static of background noise, a thread of melody, soft, fragile, patient, began to hum. Someone would hear. Maybe not today, maybe not soon, but the drone had sung, and Rail had remembered. So now, the song had somewhere to go. Subscribe to HFY Chronicles. Continue the journey in the full playlist, Chronicles of the Lost.